Hello, you're listening to Second School, a podcast by two cult survivors who are slowly learning to be functioning members of society. I'm Jake Vaughn.
Hi, Jake. I'm Ben Foard.
Hey! And together, we form the titular Second School. Now, which one of us is second and which one of us is school?
I to be honest, I don't even know if I'm second. I often come like.
You think you might be third school?
Yeah, literally. I'm like right at the back. You know, I'm disfellowship, so I don't.
You're disfellowship. Hey,
I'm not
same.
even actually. I got. What am I? Disassociated.
You're disassociated. Yeah.
Do you know what I have? This is completely random. There's no context to it at all.
Random.
I have been singing so many Kingdom songs recently, like humming them. I don't know where this come from. It didn't happen before. Then all of a sudden today, I was like,
It's because you're watching the convention videos.
Do you think that's what? But I'm not even. I'm just skimming them. But like,
yeah, but they always play that stuff in the background underneath it.
Oh, you're right. It's the little.
Head.
Yes. That's what it
Somebody
is.
brought this up in one of the convention rebuttals. It was a good point. Like they play the songs underneath, so you associate it with the theme of the. So if it's like the ministry, you'll play one of the ministry songs. And what kind of ministry and what kind of songbook? Well, we're former Jehovah's Witnesses, the both of us. And
nice.
We both within it's been over a year for me, but within the last couple of years have both escaped from a cult, and now we're talking about what life is like, what we've learned, how we've grown. Usually it's not that, and it's just us making puns and me yelling at my cat.
By the way, someone commented that they didn't realize that we had YouTube channels. Now I don't know how that happens.
That is impressive.
But I was impressed that someone had found us through Spotify or something.
You know, I jokingly mentioned that people were looking at the spirituality charts, and maybe they did actually do it. The only way we're going to chart on anything. Because I got to imagine the Christian podcast arena is a little bleak and samey.
Yeah, maybe we should just change to like a comedy podcast. Like, don't change any of the content, just change the category. And
right.
I think we'll rise through the ranks then,
No, we should definitely not do that. There's 10,000 million comedy podcasts, and I listen to them and respect the idea of comedy too much to call what we do that. What we do is religious.
Is it?
It is. This is about faith and spirituality. Only. All show long, you know it from the very start to the very end, and we never veer off. The road to everlasting life.
What is the road this week?
What is the road? What the fuck are we talking about? Okay, what we're talking about today is actually something that is near and dear to your heart, and I guess mine too, because you're my friend. And I have family who have been Bethelites, but we want to talk today about Bethel, the house of God. And specifically, this was something that you put in our shared document that might be a cool idea, and I agreed that like the perception of what Bethel is like as an outsider, as like for rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses like myself, who were not Bethelites, versus what it's like when you're in Bethel. So maybe can you define what Bethel is like for somebody who's not a Jehovah's Witness?
Right. So
everybody get out your pens.
If only I was prepared. So you've got your normal Jehovah's Witnesses. They're going around your city, knocking on your door, trying to convert you, doing all their weird nonsense. Some Jehovah's Witnesses apply. You have to send in an application form to go and live and work in Bethel, which is in most cases the country's headquarters. Sometimes the region, depending on where you are. And it's kind of like a university. So maybe anywhere between, what's the smallest in the world? Belgium's the smallest. They have maybe like 10 or 12 Bethelites, up to America where you've got thousands.
Is it that small in Belgium?
It's so great. Belgium Bethel is so nice.
That would just be like a chill frat, basically.
Well, you think, because when I went, I was like, oh my goodness, this must be amazing. You must be like, this must be, and they're like, yeah, but if there's any drama, then like
everybody feels it, and there's nowhere to hide. Yeah, that would actually
you've all
suck.
got to eat together. It's still Bethel rules. It's stupid. They do all the same stuff. So they've got like morning worship comments between like the 12 of them. It's like ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, you've got all these different size properties around the world, and people live there and work there. You don't get to choose your work; you just get given something, and that's where all the big Jehovah's Witness stuff gets done. So, like, there's a specific Bethel called World Headquarters where the top level decisions are made, and then you've got your local ones, and yeah, letters get written. Things
Magazines
get covered up,
published.
Yeah.
Videos get made and produced and stuff like that. So, yeah, if you've ever seen documentaries about like Scientology, when they have their like more corporate looking headquarters, like the Sea Org, I guess it's a little bit like that. Not quite as scary. You won't get punched in the face by David Miscavige, but you might get punched in the face by your table overseer. Depending on whether or not you use too many napkins or whatever you got yelled at for that one time.
Oh, I forgot about.
So yeah, it's basically a cult compound, but there are many of them throughout the world. The world headquarters, which is what you mostly see in all the witness propaganda, is in Warwick, New York. Used to be in downtown New York. Used to be in Brooklyn, and there was a big sign when you came over the Brooklyn Bridge that said "Read God's Word every day" or daily, and it was from Bethel. And I think.
Did you ever go?
Yep. Oh. Yes, I went when I was probably like 6 or something. My parents took me because my uncle was a Bethelite, so we like stayed at the Bethel guest suites that they had. Mm-hmm. We got to go to morning worship, nice. And
because you're overnight guests.
Yeah, shook hands with some governing body member, probably Schroeder or somebody who was alive at the time, and yeah, did all the things. And I helped work on the Warwick construction project, but by the time the opportunity would have arisen for me to go to the actual completed Warwick, I was awake and wanted nothing to do with it. But it is seen, certainly, when like you are in the religion and you're just kind of a rank and file member. Going to Bethel is seen as a huge deal. It is seen as just about as special as you can get in the organization, short of being on one of the various committees.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think whether you want to like get that high up in the organization or not, if you're in Bethel long enough, you kind of just naturally rise like a tide almost through. As long as you're normal, as long as you're not weird, you'll just naturally progress in Bethel.
The normal amount of weird that every Jehovah's Witness is. You can be that level of weird.
Of course, yeah. But some people who show up at Bethel genuinely, in fact, Bethel knows this. They talk about that internally. Like some congregations just send their wackos and think Bethel will sort them out. And then they come to Bethel and they're just like complete weight, like either they're trying it on with like the 4 women who work there or...
Those poor Belgians.
Or whatever the case, maybe they just like are abnormally like reclusive or
socially awkward.
Things. Yeah, whatever. So like those with those exceptions, generally you'll kind of rise up. Obviously not to like world headquarters level, but also it could be. You never know. Like I had friends. Inside Bethel, who I can totally, I would bet money like one of them would definitely be on branch committee in the next 20 years, and then from branch committee, your easy pickings for helper or committee member.
Right, so there's all these different ranks that exist within Bankel? No, Bethel. My brain was still stuck on ranks, and it just wanted to really hang on to it while I said the word Bethel, but I refused. I said, get behind me, rank. Okay, so you were actually a Bethelite, but this is something that was interesting to me. You did a video recently. I think it was one of your Ask Me Anything videos. One thing that comes up a lot is the drinking culture at Bethel. And what it made me realize is, the religion itself is very America-centric. And being in America, of course, you think the world revolves around you. And so I think it's just kind of become shorthand that Bethel means world headquarters, but it really does not. And I think what you pointed out was like where you were, there really was not a drinking culture. In fact, probably the opposite of one.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Hold on to this. You're exactly right.
will.
I'll say it twice.
It's probably one of the greatest days of my life.
You really are, though, because like, so even in America, like people don't understand. You have the world headquarters, you have the governing body, but you also have a branch committee who like no one cares about, but they exist. They are the ones making decisions for America, not the governing body. So you do have this additional layer, and you've got so many different branches there, and like you say, each one reflects. Well, each one in America even has its own culture to a degree, but then obviously when you have an actual culture as well, difference, that affects things. So I can imagine, I have no basis for saying this, but I can imagine the drinking culture in all Bethels is quite similar, but just because of the way alcohol is viewed in Europe and how like chill we are about it, we don't really notice or care about it, and it's never been a thing. Like I say, I might have said that in the video, like England is more uppity about it than Germany was, and America is way more uppity about it. Like whenever we had visitors, like we had, who did we have? Brother Walls came.
Ralph
just
Walls.
like exactly. When he came, and Brother Kesk, he's in Hong Kong. Anyway, when these guys came, like the things they would always comment on are how many nice cars there are in the branch. They couldn't believe it. Where did all this money come from? But it's just because the culture in Germany is you have a nice car. It is very important to them. And the shop is full of alcohol. It's like it blew their mind that this was allowed in Bethel and that everyone had these nice cars. But it's just a cultural thing that they have to get their head around. And it's the same like in England. We have like I can only think of bad examples. Like just what did we have in England that was weird? I'm trying to. Like we had like
Teeth,
English breakfast stuff in like the shop and in the pantry, which you would just never get in other countries.
It's like a sausage covered in like gravy or whatever weird crap you English
and
people eat for
peas
breakfast.
And fish,
Porridge,
some scones,
pudding. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I've heard, because everybody says this, and to the point where I don't even know if it's true, that in like the French Bethel, like they drink wine at lunchtime because that's just customary there.
Yes, and so you actually have that in most European branches. So in Britain, you got once a year you were allowed a wine table where you were allowed 2 bottles of wine. You had to bring it yourself, but you were allowed to have it like in the like lunchroom with everyone else. So that was always good. If you saw someone having a wine table, it was almost like their birthday. Like everyone was like, "Oh, look at them using their wine table."
Oh, wow. Okay, hang on a second. Well, this is something I had no idea about. I got to know about it. So you're saying that you were allowed 2 a year?
One table, 2 bottles.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
So once and each person gets this opportunity.
Yes,
you do have like like it's not really a birthday, but it is like there's a special day every year where you're allowed to.
See, what you have to remember is Bethel view everything, literally everything. I need to do a video on this. Everything, like the problem, like most country, like everything has, is because the people making decisions aren't diverse. They don't think about the diverse people when they're making those decisions. That happens all the time, right?
Right.
That is Bethel in a nutshell, because they only think about things from a couple's perspective.
Yeah.
Like every decision, every rule is thought of from the viewpoint of a couple. So these things were basically designed, I believe, and that's how it gets used for wedding anniversaries. Because you have one thing to celebrate, it's allowed, you probably want to have some wine, and you then invite some of your friends to the wine table. But for the young Bethelites, it was like, my friends are coming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And in my case,
interesting.
I asked for special permission, which somehow I got because they did not like me. I don't know how this happened. Oh, no. Well, I tell you what, I did actually ask my overseer, and I think he might put in a good word because he loved me. Anyway, in Britain, somehow I wrangled 2 wine tables, Jake. I was allowed 2 because I was like, look, you're sending me to Germany. This is the last time I'm going to see all these people. Can I at least have more than like 6 friends at the table for my last meal? And it doesn't make sense that we're drinking wine and the table next to us can't. And then I've got to choose between friends, and it's so dumb. Right. And yet they were like, when they were like, you can have, I think, if memory serves me well, I think it was, I was allowed 2 tables, but it's still 2 bottles. So you can have 1 bottle per table. And I was like, well, that is very accommodating, to be fair, for Bethel.
I mean, I didn't even know this was a thing until 5 minutes ago, but this is unprecedented in my mind. Now, because you mentioned that you weren't liked, and I just did you consider with the drinking culture thing that you were just kind of lame and nobody invited you to all the cool parties where people would actually drink and have fun?
I think I might have said that in the video. Yeah, that I don't like to say nonsense. I genuinely, it could be that behind closed, but I just really don't think so. Like,
no, it seems like you would know.
Yeah, what I mean is, like, it really depends on how you view the alcohol. So, like, when we came to Germany, there was a few of us, even young guys, who was like, oh my goodness, I got invited to this person's house and we had like 3 glasses of whiskey, and they were like a little bit like, whoa, that was, you know, but over time you just get used to the culture that's, you know, some brothers, you are going to have a couple of drinks when you go around their flat.
Oh,
So this is totally normal for me, but if you're maybe like an American Bethelite and you're visiting Europe, or you get a European Bethelite who's been promoted to world headquarters, and then they bring this culture with them, they obviously stand out.
Sure. Yeah, okay, well, that is interesting. You brought this up, and I really liked this. The kind of like subculture that exists within the already very niche subculture of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then, yes, within Bethel, but also within different departments. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I've noticed this just on the internet, too. You know, there's no hobby too obscure to have its own community with weird subcultures within that subculture. And I guess it's the same thing at Bethel. But definitely the perception that is given from the videos that Bethel produces and from, you know, what it appears to be from the outside perspective is that you dwell together in unity, that it is like completely unified. Culturally, it's the same, basically. There's no conflict. I mean, this is God's house.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. But like, even if
it's not like a life of debauchery and sin.
What? See, the thing, I can only speak to my experience. So like, when I was
need you to speak
Bethel,
for all Bethelites worldwide.
But like, so as I was coming in, there was like some like big scandal in the London branch, and like I heard about things like before we arrived in Germany. But like while I was there, I didn't see. Oh, do you know what? There was one time when one single sister, surprisingly, just out of the blue, got like kicked out of Bethel and disfellowshipped, I think. And that was, and one guy from the laundry, now that I think about it. So there was a couple who like just straight up one morning, like literally one morning they're there for breakfast, the next morning they're not. And you think, oh, they must be, you don't even think about it, they must be sick or something. And then at the end of morning worship, they're like, has been disfellowshipped. And you're like, oh, flip, wow. He literally got kicked out yesterday.
Wow. So when I was at Warwick, they tied us into all the morning worship stuff. And I think it was Malenfant who was doing it, and it was like after the like nice morning worship, which is, if you don't know, is basically just kind of like a morning sermon that's given, you know, based on the daily Bible reading that Jehovah's Witnesses have in the daily text. And you know, it was all nice and encouraging. People are talking about scriptures. You know, there's comments that are prepared ahead of time. And then he had to be like, Brother so-and-so has been disfellowshipped. He left Bethel headquarters on this date. And that was it. I was like, oh. And it was just kind of like a weird, somber end to everything.
Yeah, I guess that's a whole other subject that I was about to introduce that I actually don't want to introduce because I want to prepare. But yeah, no, it is true that people... stuff happens at Bethel, of course, just like any other congregation. But I think you're right that like maybe most people listening are not going to be Bethelites or probably have never even been to Bethel. But if you think about like Jehovah's Witness culture and how it's portrayed as being unified everywhere, maybe you have noticed that in other countries it's slightly different, or even in different congregations they feel completely different. It's like that at Bethel as well. Each one has its own culture, its own rules, its own feel. You can tell if the branch committee are old or not basically as soon as you walk in. It's very nice. It is just
it's like a closed community within a closed community.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, you live there, you eat your meals there. It's I mean, it's 24/7. One of the things that I was kind of curious about was just how you felt about the work you did on a day-to-day basis, because I would assume that initially it's exciting because you are, you're at Bethel, you're at God's house. This is an incredible spiritual privilege. But does it just become work? Like, do you resent your work? Like, does it just become like a normal job?
Good question. I'm enjoying this interview, Jake. Thank you.
Oh, welcome.
No, I think it doesn't become work, but it very quickly becomes routine. So in my case at least, I didn't despise. Well, okay. So there's two layers here. To answer your question, no, I didn't despise the work because of the mundane aspect of it, or because it felt like work, because it didn't, because I'm not getting paid.
That's a big difference.
It feels like Bethel. It really does, and everyone's in the same boat. But the routine does set in quickly, so that excitement wears off, and suddenly you're just, I was there 6 years, and that is crazy to me, because it really, the time flies, because you're just doing the exact same thing Monday to Friday, and then at the weekend it's more than likely the same thing. You don't have money to go on holidays and do exciting stuff to break up all this routine, so it's just a constant churn. On top of that, though, you do have this layer, which is what I was struggling to express before, where sometimes you just have real, like, crappy people working in the department or as overseers. So I loved my time in London shipping. My overseer was really great. Like I say, he helped me out a couple of times.
You were in shipping, so you did you make the boxes all fast and everything?
No, so in London, at the time, shipping was split, so the London branch was really weird, because it was in the middle of London, so real estate was so expensive that Bethel, and England, Bethel's growing rapidly, so they couldn't just expand Bethel because they've got people living like either side of them, so they just started buying random properties. So Bethel in London was like, from one end to the other was like an hour in the car, because you've got all these random properties everywhere. So because of that, they had to buy some weird warehouse in the middle of nowhere for literature. And that's where all the normal, big, heavy lifting, muscly shipping stuff happened. And I was in magazine shipping, where we literally wandered around a very small, like, big room, basically, to find, like, a French magazine or something that was incorrectly labeled. And it's like, oh, I found French. And there'd be a little pile of French and all this nonsense. It was, like, much more me than... Yeah.
Did you ever say, I know a little French? He's sitting right over there. And you pointed to your French friend.
No, I'm British. We don't have French friends.
Hey, you know what? Americans, same. We all agree. Anyway, that's not important. The thing that you were saying is crappy coworkers.
Right. So sometimes in a department, you just get, like, just bad people, basically. Either they've been in Bethel so long that they've gone nuts, or they've been in Bethel so long that they feel like they've really earned this authority that they now have, this little bit of authority, or they're just crappy people. Whatever it is, some of these people end up in overseer or oversight positions. So in London, in my department, that didn't happen. I knew of a couple where that was the case. And then in Germany, it became clear quite quickly that my team leader was just one of the worst people on the planet. And I think I've honestly recorded things about that, because I can ramble on about him for such a long time. I think 3 videos I've talked about that, and then just cut it in editing, because I just ramble on about him. But he is so bad. I hate him. That's me
ever talking about the original songs. I always, if I let myself go, I'll just go on a rant, and then I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything. I have to cut this again.
Yeah.
And I'll cut it out of this fucking podcast, too. No, this will stay, because I'm lazy.
I did a Week With Me video. I think I must have spoke for 2 hours about shipping and all the problems that he's created in it. And then I came back to, and it was like my phone's almost out of storage, and I was like, how the heck did that happen? And then I noticed that I'd spoke for 2 hours. Anyway, yeah, he really sucked. So he, and to put that into perspective, when you're in Bethel, it's not just a case of like your boss sucking. This person kind of follows you around your life. So you're going to see them on the way home. They'll be the ones for sure who are invited to your next door neighbors, and then will come knock on your door and say your music's too loud. And they're the ones who in the morning say like, I noticed you were, doing such and such, and that's not considered good because according to the dwelling manual, section 14C, you should be doing this. And they're the ones who, when you are going to buy beer, will, even though it's totally allowed and they did it last time, they'll make like a little sarky comment about how you're buying beer again and you need to watch that. And they just follow you around. And then all of those comments and all of that microaggression comes back to you in terms of like you don't get promoted, and they come up with crap about what your work is like or what you're doing in work because they just don't like you. So you can see people, and I could give you names, not that it helps anything, of people who just get stuck in Bethel because their overseers hate them, even though, like, if I put my JW brain on, they are really good Bethelites. Like, they love what they're doing. They're fully into it. They're reading the Bible every day. They love what they're doing.
Doesn't make you a good person.
No, but like Bethel's. No, I mean the workers who just get stuck are doing that, and then these overseers, because they have a bee in their bonnet. Is that a British expression?
No, I've heard that.
Perfect.
Many times.
They have a bee in their bonnet, and just hold these people and make sure they don't get anywhere in life. And those people, I feel so bad for them because they are the exact people who come time for reassignments. So you get kicked out of Bethel basically, but you haven't done anything wrong. They're always first in line, even though they've done nothing wrong. They've been there 10, 20 years. Given all of their youth, they're not weird. They just don't. That overseer doesn't like them, and that was always really rough. Like I even saw it in a weird way, as I'm awake. So I was only awake in Bethel for like a year and a half. A guy came in. I thought he was super nice. He really liked Bethel. He's fully into it. Wasn't long in the truth. He'd only been in the truth.
Hey.
He's all coming back. I think he got baptized like 2 or 3 years before, so he's fairly new, young guy, and immediately you could tell that my overseer, who's the devil, didn't like him, and I thought this poor guy is not going to go anywhere. He didn't go anywhere, and after 9 months, without warning, even though you have to commit to doing a year in Bethel, so for a year you after
should
9
be
months,
safe.
The overseer just went up to him and was like, yeah, we're reassigning you back. Even though we needed workers, we were doing so much overtime. We were
The overseer has that much control that they can just kind of fire somebody?
No, but if you have friends in high places...
Yeah, if you've got the clout, you can...
Exactly. You can make stuff happen.
See, that happens, with elders and stuff who just won't appoint a young servant. But the servant could just, maybe move to a different congregation or something. But in Bethel, I mean, you're stuck there. What's striking me is it's like if you worked in a hotel, but everybody who worked in the hotel also lived in the hotel. Exactly. So there is just no escape.
Yes, and also has to eat at the hotel restaurant.
To eat at the hotel restaurant
with the guests at the exact same time.
And none of you get paid.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it's like.
That actually sounds like a kidnapping scheme, to be honest with
you. Yeah. So it is...
Yeah?
Oh, sorry. I thought you said just a sec. Sorry.
No, I said interesting. Sorry.
Oh, I've ruined everything.
Don't worry. I'll never say that anything you said was interesting ever again.
Yeah, so it is strange, and it's just an odd environment, and everyone recognizes it, but it's I kind of lost my trail of thought, to be honest. You said it was interesting, and I got really happy and got confused.
Do you sleep on that thing behind you?
Don't talk about how messy my room is.
No, not the
This is
mess.
an
I just
audio-only
always
podcast.
wonder about that because it kind of looks like a bed, but there's a headboard and a footboard. It seems like it'd be impossible for you to fit on it.
Oh no, that is the bed. Yeah,
That is the bed.
I didn't even know this until like a couple of days ago when the people I live with told me. But this actually like pulls out apparently into a double bed.
Oh.
I was like, oh, cool. But it doesn't make sense because I don't have the room. I don't have the physical floor space for a double bed.
Right. It would like slam into your setup there.
That would become the floor. Yeah, and the door would never open.
Sorry, that wasn't important. I just realized I was like, I gotta ask about this thing. I can't figure out what it is.
No, you got to ask the big questions in life, Jake.
These are the
You gotta
big
shoot
questions.
your shot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have tapped into something interesting though, which is just the human politics of everything, and how that's an inescapable part of the organization that I think everybody knows about, but can be easier or harder to ignore, I guess, depending on your rank and depending on your personality. And just luck of the draw on whether or not you're stuck with the crappy people. You know, it could just be that you're in a nice congregation with nice elders and it's just kind of chill. But if you are an elder and you're stuck in these hours-long meetings with all these dingbats, you might see the politicking a little bit more. So did that kind of stuff bother you in the doubting it's the truth sense, or more just bother you like, oh, we need to work to improve culture here at Bethel?
No, well, I didn't think that. No, as you were talking, I was trying to think.
It's bad, and I think it should say that way.
Well, I'm more of a because I knew that, especially like when I'm having these thoughts as like a Pimmy witness, I have no clout. I can't change any of this. And Bethel is such a big, slow-moving organization that I just have to complain, like verbally. I can't
That's
actively
true.
try
It would never
to
occur to
solve
me
this.
to think like, okay, well, we've got to tear this oppressive establishment down board by board. Yeah.
But as you were saying that, I was trying to think of it, if I could give an example of that kind of politics, and like one that comes to mind. I actually don't really know if I guess I can say that. Yeah. So I just went identify, but basically one young brother came in to Bethel and got put in the laundry. Am I going to regret saying this? I don't know. Let's go for it.
Who's
anyway,
going to
shall we?
listen to this that will take action against?
I know,
anything
but
you
if he
say?
ever leaves, he's going to hate me for telling this
No,
story.
he'll be like, you're right.
He showed up at Bethel and got put in what's it called? Housekeeping department. So basically a cleaner. And I didn't know him at this point, but apparently it became clear that he like really wanted more from Bethel. Like he wanted to rise quickly. So what did he say? Oh, housekeepers also have to do occasional night shifts or something. And he was having problems sleeping and it was affecting his Bible study. So he complained. And that's the kind of complaint that actually will get you moved,
It's affecting you spiritually. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got moved to the laundry, which is probably, in most people's eyes, a step up. At least in that branch it was.
Interesting. Okay.
So that was interesting. I did then like meet him vaguely as he was in laundry. And you know what happened while he was in laundry, Jake? It was so sad.
Did he get stuck in the dryer?
He was like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Just get sucked up a chute. No. No, the detergent was hurting his hands,
No.
Yeah.
If only they made things that cover your hands.
Yeah, literally. So he complained about that and got moved to shipping, which is definitely a step.
Yeah, that's definitely.
So here he is in shipping, and then he somehow made known to like the right people that he had like programming skills, even though I'm not sure he did. He just had done a bit before. And honestly, everyone's watching this kid, like anyone who's got a brain is like, this guy is
He's wheeling and dealing.
for lack of a bit of, I was going to say bum licking. So so that's a better way to put it. But he's trying, it's very clear, very obvious when you know that someone is trying to get through, they're trying to play the game.
He's hustling.
And as he's in shipping, he then gets this programming job in shipping, which I was
Wow.
definitely better qualified for, but we won't go there.
Seems like we just did, but okay.
Anyway, so he's doing that, and then he kind of becomes like a mini team leader. So then he's managing people, and this guy is a lot younger than us. I was an elder. He's not. I think he was a servant, and it was a weird dynamic that doesn't normally happen in Bethel. And then all of a sudden, he starts like inviting people over for lunch, which is like a classic Bethel way to rise through the ranks. And he starts inviting all the big people to lunch all the time. So like he's having all of the branch committee round like during the week. He's having all everyone you can imagine. And then that did take a little while, but within like 2 years, he was, and I don't know this for a fact, but I believe it to be true, the first ever case. This is how good his bumlicking was. First ever case of someone who was not an elder, but only a servant, got moved where, Jake? Service department.
Get out of town.
Service department.
Service department as a servant.
As a servant.
Not the servants department, the service department.
So he had access to like all of the stuff his congregation elders were doing, but yet was not in the elders meetings.
That's bananas. Okay, so I mean, in the service department, it's such a vague title.
Right.
It doesn't really have much to do with the ministry.
No, yeah, it's basically, if you imagine like, you know when you get IT problems and you ring up someone random and they just try and help you with your generic IT.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, it's like that for Jehovah's Witnesses, right? If the elders have any
service.
problems, if whatever it is, the elders will probably
Spiritual
ring
IT.
service department. Exactly. Whether it's spiritual, whether it's a legal thing, they'll probably ring service.
You know what you could call it, Ben? You could call it the spiritual tech department, the STD.
Oh, nice. Everyone loves a good STD.
I think that guy was the first ministerial servant to get STDs.
I don't know if I think that might be fake news, Jake.
You don't think that's true?
No,
I think he had to do
don't.
some real life butt looking to get up the chain.
No.
If
I
you
didn't.
lick
I
my
don't
butt,
like him,
I'll
but
promote you to
I
the
would
service
never.
department.
Aye. Anyway, but it was really funny because everyone, not just my friends, but people I was kind of just acquaintances with, would talk about how clearly this guy is just trying to go through the ranks. But he got with the right people, and bada bing, bada boom. Then in service department, basically everyone believes the service department as a whole kind of told his elder body, you have to make him an elder. And then within like 4 or 5 months, he was an elder.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a really important bit of insight, and you didn't mention it, but that person was Raymond Franz. And no. But
it's funny because that person, this is why I was a bit funny about maybe telling the story, because I didn't want to say what I'm about to say. Funny. But he wheedled his way into getting prominently used in some videos as well, which everyone was like sick to the death of by that point. It's like, of course you're the face of Bethel.
Boy,
yeah,
this guy. Now, if he had been like Jesus, that would be really amazing. Like if he talked his way all the way up to like, I will
wouldn't
play
surprise me.
live action Jesus now.
Well, to be fair to him, he is objectively good looking.
Damn it!
Which
I
I
hate
think
to hear
definitely
that too.
does help. Yeah, I know. He's annoying.
I wish he was a big uggo.
I wish he was stuck in a cult that you just couldn't. Oh wait.
Yeah. How can we punish him? Oh, he gets everything he ever wanted,
He
and
stood
he's
on
in
a
miserable
cart.
cult. Yeah.
Exactly. No, he's not. He's in Bethel. We don't do ministry.
No, but anyway, what I was saying is like the spirit-appointed men concept really gets in your head. Do you think that like people are called by Jehovah to do the things that they are doing, where the kind of thing that you're describing makes it clear that for some people who are willing to play the game, they can just work up the ranks, even if they're very transparent in their motives.
And everyone knows that. Like even the elder who I was very close to, and who was the one who like interrogated me about apostasy right at the end. So it was very intense. Who like he did a lot for. He was a really good like brother, you would say. Like he looked out for me even against the overseer, and good guy. Very, very powerful inside Bethel, you would say, like, he really pulled his weight. He would argue with branch committee to get things done. This kind of guy. Very, if he was in your side, you'd be all right. Even such like a spiritual giant, you might say, that like people in the country knew, he still was like, you know, in Bethel, you just got to play the game. You've got to like, everyone knows that it is like that. And if you don't, you're probably one of the weirdos I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, I was about to say, you kind of, I can't tell if you have to have self-awareness or a lack of it in order to work your way up the ladder. Like,
it's a bit of both. Yeah,
it's a bit of both. Like, it seems like he has to appeal to powerful people, and in order to be a powerful person with access to all of this information, you kind of have to be deluding yourself a little bit, as we all are when we're indoctrinated, but more so when you have that amount of power. But at the same time, I think you have to be self-aware enough to know, like, this is a game that I can play, and I can work my way up the ladder. Yeah, it's an interesting balance. I think that's why it's hard to nail down the governing body members in terms of, like, their awareness of what they're doing and its harm, because I think that there's equal measures. They know it's a call, and they absolutely believe it's the truth.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other subject.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And I already did a video on it. Well, anyway, folks. I kind of randomly want to pivot and ask you about this elder that interrogated you about apostasy, because when it all first happened, you know, we talked about it, but you were real emotionally raw, and like, I didn't get any details. I think you were kind of frazzled by it, and I don't know that you've ever really talked about that particular thing in detail. Maybe there's not much to talk about, but as a friend, I find it kind of interesting. Like, I want to know what kind of things they interrogated you about. Like, what kind of things are they asking? Because they asked me, but it was like, you made a video on the internet, we could see your face. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, Jake, when I'm able to talk more on that, I probably will. But because it involves other people apart from myself.
Gotcha, okay.
It's kind of a no-go.
Your secret family that still lives in Germany.
Yeah, the ones that talk to me.
Oh.
Yes, but and also there's not really much to say on my part, because I wasn't under investigation personally.
Oh, I see. It was somebody else.
I was just in question. Yeah, exactly.
You were in the line of fire. They didn't know the real mafia was in front of them the whole time.
Yeah, it was a bit like, you know, oh, you've just robbed a bank. You walk out and the police are like, we're looking for...
Which way did the bank robber go? And you're like,
yeah, literally. And
you, with the bag with the money sign on it. Which way did the bank robber go?
Yes, but you're right. It wasn't very emotional, just obviously because of the intensity of it all.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm leaving, but also because, you know, I have...
you had, like, plans lined up
involved,
to escape,
exactly.
And you had friends involved. I mean, yeah, it was a whole thing. Okay, well, that is its own thing. And, you know, if nothing else, that's a teaser for a future episode, because I'm not going to cut this out. But back to the Bethel thing.
Right.
I'm trying to think of what my perception of it was, because it didn't appeal to me when I was like 19 years old, because I wanted to get married and have sex as soon as possible. And I was out there, you know, flirting and dating around and stuff. But then after a couple... What's that?
What else is new?
Hey, I know, right? Hey, that's me. Old Playboy Jake over here. Just wheeling and dealing. What else can you say?
Is that the voice you'd use to chat up girls?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, they immediately think that I'm a serial killer. So after my serial killer voice exposed me for the creep that I am, I you know, had some time to reflect. No, but like as I got, you know, I don't know, after a couple years, I was like, actually, I don't like working at all, and I don't like dealing with money and real world problems. It sounds kind of nice to be in a compound where everything's kind of laid out. Like, I like structure. I like getting up at the same time every day, knowing what I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. My job now is like there's twists and turns that can come up, but the bulk of it's pretty routine, and I kind of like that. So it appealed to me, but I'm trying to, you know, I didn't really have the perception that it was like so much greater. Sorry, I'm rambling trying to capture my own
it's
thoughts
interesting
on it.
because it sounds like my pre-Bethel knowledge of Bethel was next to nothing. Like everything I knew about Bethel, I think I just kind of made up in my head. But it sounds like you had more information and were like, no, this is not the correct decision for me.
Yeah, I think like having a family member that went to Bethel, and then now he is still a missionary with his wife. They're both SKE, and hearing stories from him over the years, and my dad's an elder, and he would be pretty open with me about stuff and how things work. I felt like I understood the more human nature of it, but I feel like I liked that. I liked the idea of the corporateness of it in some weird way, which is so funny because I just am like, I hate in every other aspect of my life, I hated that kind of shit, and I absolutely do now. And it's so weird that I had this blind spot of like, yeah, but that's legit because that's the house of God. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just kind of trying to reconstruct how did I feel about Bethel. I guess that's kind of the point of this podcast. Is like, how did I actually feel about this versus how do I want to narrativize my own journey? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So while you ramble on, I'll talk about how I...
I'll mute my mic and I'll keep talking, but you go on.
But I honestly had never thought about Bethel as an act of real... I'd visited, I'd done the tour was boring, everyone that worked there was a bit weird, and literally I thought it was like a nunnery, like people were reading the Bible all day and writing Revelation books, and that's what happens at Bethel. And it was only because I was having like essentially a JW midlife crisis of like, what do I do with my life? How do I give the most? As the assembly was happening, as that assembly was focused on getting young ones to Bethel.
Yeah.
That all of it fell into place. And then also a friend died in a motorbike accident, a worldly colleague who I then thought I should have been preaching to. And then one of the things that the assembly was like, I've wanted to preach so much, but then I realized I can like help millions preach by going to Bethel or something. And I was like, ka-ching, this sounds efficient. Yeah, but I had no basis for... I'd never been to Watchtower House, which is the kind of main Bethel, I'd say, of England.
It's called
ever
Watchtower
before I
House.
moved in. Yeah, it was...
Is everything in England called something house? Like Bleak House and...
Downton Abbey.
House, Downton Abbey. I was thinking of Downton Abbey, and then I was like, that's actually not called House. I know there's the House of Lords,
Big Ben House,
Parliament House,
London Eye House.
That might be the same as the House of Lords. I don't actually know how your government works.
If no one does.
Is the House of Lords and the House of Parliament different?
Yeah, the House of Commons and the House of Lords.
House of Commons. That's another thing I was thinking of. And
yeah, House of Commons is where
Charles Dickens.
Then you have Hill House on Netflix.
Oh my god,
it's great.
And then you have Monster House, written by Dan Harmon, the animated movie.
That's written by Dan Harmon.
Yeah,
the creator of Community.
Yeah, that's why that movie rules. It's very funny.
Oh, I've never seen the Monster House.
Oh, Monster House is good. Did you feel as a Bethelite that when you would maybe visit back home or just friends in a normie congregation that you were viewed as a little bit spiritually superior?
1,000%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely what it felt like when Bethelites would come to visit. But I've also heard that, in New York, it's not that way because there's 3 different Bethels there, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, great, another Bethelite.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, like in the vicinity of Bethel, no one cares at all. So, like in London, when it was in London or around Selters area in Germany, like a Bethelite is basically nothing. Mm-hmm. But when you go outside of that radius, you are kind of like adorned a little bit, like socially. And also, I'm not saying it kind of feels like almost earned as well because
I knew you were going to say that
because it's almost like when I walk in and there's like some random elder body, especially when you're like an elder in Bethel, you're like, these guys you think you're overloaded and you've got loads on, and I'm sure you have like family stuff and all the problems everyone else has, but you have no idea how this organization runs, and you are like, you are making decisions blindly. Basically, you don't have the full.
Yeah, you literally have more information than them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so much more. It's not just like you've got an extra book or something. It's like I've got the owner's manual and you don't. It's like I know all of the people making the decisions. Yeah. I know how they think. I know exactly the processes, the rules they have to follow.
Yeah.
It's like walking into a Lego store and seeing someone like big up some new Lego set to their friends when you made Lego.
Yeah, you're just James like, T. Lego.
It's almost Lego. Sweet. It's just like, oh, that's kind of look at you sending in the report.
Oh, you read the letter that we sent you.
Yeah, it is a little bit like that. Even though you're not involved in those decisions, you just know everyone who is, so you feel like club. You are. Yeah. And so there definitely is an air of superiority. Not like you say in the vicinity, but outside of that, for sure. And especially if you're like on official assignment from Bethel, that's like you're Jesus, basically. And then when they change the meeting, I don't know how often that happens in America, because you obviously you have a big deficit of Bethelites to congregations. But like in most countries, and presumably in America as well, just less so, they will send Bethelites out every now and then to like give talks and stuff. And then like the meeting. Yeah, you got that? Yeah.
I tell you what would mostly happen is it would usually, I mean, everybody knows somebody who's at Bethel, whether it's a cousin or an uncle. So whenever they come to town, it's like, will you give our Sunday talk while you're here? And so you just kind of get one by proxy, right. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's also like the official Bethel assignment.
Oh, well, you know what? We do get those at assemblies and conventions. You might have a Bethel speaker.
Okay, yes. Still not what I'm talking about. But, so basically, like, every now and then, congregation, I'm not sure if it's done, if, like, there's a specific problem or need. But anyway, a Bethelite from the branch will get sent to that congregation for the week, and they might help with some kind of situation that's going on.
Oh, I see.
But also the meeting schedule changes. So like you'll have the 2 meetings again, and like they put on something special on the Saturday and everyone eats together, and like, it's a big week of it, almost like a CO visit.
Yeah, that's not a thing, at least in my area.
Right. Yeah, this is what I always thought is how does America do this? Because it's so big.
Yeah.
But it's weird. Yeah. So then in Britain branch, there was quite a lot just randomly older single brothers, and so obviously if you're going to do something like that without a wife, that's crazy. So they would invite like a young single brother to go with them. So that so at least there's 2 of them. You've always got to have 2 witnesses, Jake.
Right. And the good thing is if you have 2 men together, nothing sexual can happen ever.
No.
Yeah. Well, it's impossible.
How would that even work, Jake?
How would that even work?
Anyway, so I can't remember why I'm telling you that, but
because you
so if that
superior.
Exactly. I never got invited to stuff like that. I wasn't in England.
Yeah, it's because you always acted very superior when you would go out and visit. People wouldn't invite you to their nice parties.
I wasn't at the alcohol parties.
Right. You had to be drinking buddies with the right people.
Got to be in the room where it happens.
Hey!
Call back to an episode of this podcast. Yes, but yeah, there's definitely an error, and they bake that into you. Now that you've prodded me, Jake. Now I'm remembering things because they also literally my first week they call it in the Britain branch. They called it. Actually, is this a worldwide thing? I can't remember. At least in the Britain branch, they call your first week your nappy run.
I knew it was going to be the most British bullshit thing. Your Foppington run. You definitely wouldn't call it that in the States.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's a British thing. But anyway, in the nappy run,
I don't even like hearing that word.
I had a meeting. I think this has changed now. I don't think this happens. Probably after my experience, that's why. But you had to like have a one-on-one with one of the branch committee, whoever was like free, just to like kind of introduce you to Bethel, blah, blah. Oh. I got, again, I'm not sure if I'm really like, if I'll get sued if I name branch committee. So I'm not going to say, but I got a branch committee member, right? Who I'm like wide-eyed, new in Bethel, excited.
Yeah.
And I sit down and this guy tells me like the most depressing stories, and not depressing like sad, depressing, like almost like that should have woken me up right then and there.
Oh.
Like he's like, okay, so you know when we announce stuff in Bethel, like whatever's going on in Bethel, if you have a good experience, if you have a bad, you cannot talk about it with anyone. Don't tell your parents what's happening in Bethel. Don't tell your friends back in your congregation what's happening at Bethel. It's none of their business. Last week, we had an announcement about we're having some reassignments. And do you know what some Bethelite did? They talked about that to their parents. They were saying, oh, I'm scared if I'm going to be reassigned. And then those parents wrote a letter to the branch committee saying how they were upset about reassignments. And we thought, how did they know about these reassignments? Because they shouldn't know that. So we had to reassign that brother because he told his parents, and that should not be happening. Bethel's trade secrets should stay inside the Bethel family. And I was like, what the flip? I've got to lie to my parents.
Yeah, that is really weird. That makes sense to me now, though, because, I mean, yeah, Bethelites, they really don't like telling stories specifically about stuff that happens.
That was a big thing, though. It was really hot. And then what did he say? He said something, and this came full circle, not as I woke up, but like a couple of months before, maybe it was helping. Is he then in that meeting and all the time at morning worship would say, he says, when you're at Bethel, and he said this at the time in that meeting, he said, when you're at Bethel, it's a privilege. And some people just squander that privilege and they go back to pioneering, they go back to wherever they've come from, and they just decide they don't like it anymore, or they can't hack it, and that is going back. You know, they're going back home. Do you hear the language? They're going back home. It's a step backwards. And I do not like steps backwards. You want to always make steps forward in the truth. Literally, a couple of years later, I can't remember if it was a broadcasting. I don't think it was. It must have been a British. Oh, I was in the British branch, I think. Anyway, by this time, reassignments are happening all the time.
Yeah.
And they had to change their tune. So at morning worship, he says, you know, some people say reassignment is a step back, but is it because Jehovah wants them in a new location? And my jaw was on the floor, and I was like, you said that. You're the one who started that.
It was you all
literally
along.
all the time. Like, not like a one-off, he heard it from, he was the instigator of that and would like shout at people who decided that Bethel wasn't for them.
It was
and
Brother
then all of a
Nappy
sudden,
Week with the microphone on the podium.
that really irked me because, I mean, he was a jerk in lots of ways, but that was like a real...
That's really
like,
bad. He's known for saying the one thing. It didn't be like... He wasn't like, I had to really adjust my understanding on this.
Exactly.
Even the fake humility I like a little bit more than just like, some people used to think this.
Exactly. He watchtowered it. He literally just went, some people have said...
Many people are saying this.
It's like, you said it, Watchtower. You said it, not anyone else.
You were the sayer of things.
Literally.
Oh my god.
I can't remember why I'm telling you that.
I got secondhand anger. No, this is the kind of story that I thrive on, that makes me alive. And without them, I would be dead.
Such a poo.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like ending on an angry note. No, but that was really great.
Yeah, basically, I think the message of the podcast is if you're thinking of applying to Bethel, don't.
We know we have a lot of potential Bethelites listening.
Yeah, of course. They're our main audience on the demographics.
I would love it if that was true. I would love it if we were like, hey, I know we're not supposed to listen to apostate stuff, but this Second School podcast is pretty good. You should listen to it.
Jake, I just want any human to think that. Like, if we get 4 views,
if
that would
anybody
be great.
thinks it's good, then that would be an incredible improvement. No, we've gotten some nice comments. We got some really encouraging comments. Mm-hmm. That we bring out encouraging points.
God, I'm having like flashbacks. You're using a platform voice.
Thank you. Thank you,
Jake,
Brother Foard.
I've been listening to Second School podcast, and I want to hear more from you. How can I do that?
Impossible. I'm a pretty quiet, private person. I don't like to talk out of turn or put myself in the spotlight. In spite of that, I've started a YouTube channel. It's called AltWorldly, one word, A-L-T, worldly, and yeah, it's all extra.
A-L-T, worldly.
Yeah, I got a YouTube channel, and it's all XJW stuff, and it's a lot of fun. And I was thinking, Ben, let's say people are sick of the guy who dominates the conversation all the time and constantly veers it off course. They're like, if I could just listen to Ben talk about stuff, that would be good. That kind of person does not exist. We both agree. But if they did, dire multiverse where that exists, how could people find you?
They can find me by simply searching my name, I think, these days. Ben, B-E-N, Foard, Worldly. No, Foard is weird. It's F-O-A-R-D. But yeah, put in anything like that on the YouTubes and the Googles, and my face will probably pop up.
Yes,
if not,
well,
Jake's.
I tried putting something like that. I tried putting Ben Foard, as in B-E-E-N F-O-R-D. And I got somebody who used to be a car. So that was no good.
Wow.
They had been a Ford. So that,
wow.
Yeah. So don't just put in something like that. Actually type his name in correctly.
That would be great.
Also, some people have put different things after the word alt and come up with some really bad videos. So make sure you search
do you know what?
my name
I
right,
think
too.
do you know what I Googled today? It was something like AltWorldly channel or AltWorldly
Scandal.
something or other. Because I typed and some weird nonsense came up, that was almost like not podcastable. But yeah, so let's work on the Google algorithm so that at least doesn't happen to second school.
Yeah, that's why the views have been low.
Yeah. What kind of school is this?
Filth. That terrible man has started a second school.
There's only one student,
didn't
and
care
the
for this
teacher's
reference.
dressed very inappropriately.
We hadn't considered the idea of making this like a school where one of us is the professor and the other one is the student.
Oh dear. We're rapidly losing not only listeners, but
Brain cells?
Yeah.
Sanity? Yeah, well, please like and subscribe on iTunes. Not like, rate. Rate and subscribe.
But on YouTube, you can like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah, we are also on YouTube. So,
and you can write comments on Spotify, is that right? No, you can rate. You can rate.
You can also rate on Spotify, I do believe. But yeah, YouTube is good because you can comment. And so do that if you have something nice to say. If not, the best way to comment is to
email Jake
up.
directly.
Yeah, or email me directly to our linked email account. Okay.
Nice.
This has been Second School, and we had a sign off one time, and it was good.
This has been Second School, the podcast by two cult survivors who are slowly learning to become functioning members of society. Thank you for listening, and we hope you join us for the next one where we will finally evolve into functioning members of society.
Yes. Do you
know all of that off the top of my head? I'm impressed.
That was good. No, I like that a lot, actually. Like, the next one is the one where we actually evolve. Evolution is not a slow, gradual process. It is something...
No, it happened over a few thousand years.
Spontaneously happened. Yeah. I mean, it happened after Noah's flood. Noah's flood.
Yeah.
Remember when Noah flooded the earth?
You know when that guy cried all the time?
Noah?
And it just flooded the earth.
The Bible got it all wrong. Noah was just a fucking crybaby. He just couldn't stop sobbing and weeping, and he just flooded the whole earth. And
oh, boo-hoo. There's all these orgies going on. Boo-hoo.
Now all these animals are at my house. I'm going to make my kids make a boat for me to put all my animal friends on.
And not make enough space for the food and supplies needed.
Dad, this thing is just a rectangle. There's no way it's gonna float.
Get in, son. I'm feeling emotional.
There are more than one animal on this that weighs more than a ton. I'm afraid we will not be able to. Nope, son.
Shut the door to Mount Sinai.
Chop down more trees with your bare hands to build this.
Let us float around the earth and arrive exactly in the same area that we started.
Yeah. Well, they were on Mount Ararat, first of all. So.
You're absolutely right.
Please.
What did I say? Sinai.
You did say Mount Sinai.
To be fair, there's only two mounts. We all know.
No, that's true. Well, the Mount of Olives.
Oh, you should be in service department, Drake.
That's what I always thought. Now, I didn't know that was a thing that existed, but I was thinking that I should be in something like that.
With a little crown.
With a little crown, yeah. A lot of times I would go to Burger King, get a kid's meal, get the crown, put it on, and think, I should be doing this, but at Bethel. I should be in charge. I should be large and in charge. That was a suggestion from the audience. Okay. Well, I like that the outro is still going. Oh, yeah, also bye.
Bye.
Yay.
Perfect.
It has been accomplished.
Is that what you say after orgasm?
Yes. And then I say, Father, why have you forsaken me?